This episode is supported by FX's The Shards, a seductive drama from executive producer Ryan Murphy. Set in 1980s Los Angeles, the series follows a group of glamorous, deeply entangled high school seniors drawn into a life of wealth, beauty, parties, and excess. At its center is Brett, whose reality begins to unravel when the arrival of a new student coincides with a series of mysterious murders. FX's The Shards premieres August 5th on FX and Hulu.
In 1933, RKO Pictures and star Fay Wray gave the world a dynamite new talkie that had people going apes.
In 2026, we're going to drink a whiskey from China, the pronunciation of which will get me in as much hot water as the makers of this movie as they depict real people from China.
The film is King Kong.
The whiskey is SHÀNG Dàn Yǎ whiskey.
And we're good. You just knocked the accent right out of me, Bob. We're going to review them both. This is the Film and Whiskey Podcast.
Welcome to the Film and Whiskey Podcast, where each week we review a classic movie and a glass of whiskey. I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G, and I'm going to talk like this the entire episode.
You're absolutely not, because A, we will lose listeners at a startling rate, and B, you will lose a co-host at a startling rate if you continue to do that, Brad.
Just going to talk about myself.
But I understand exactly why you want to do that accent, because we're talking about 1933's King Kong, a movie that I have been absolutely, to quote our friend Ryan Gosling, jacked to the tits to talk to you about this week, Brad. I cannot wait to talk about King Kong, a film that I have not seen in many, many, many years. We'll talk a little bit about both of our, histories or familiarity with the film itself. But it's really rare for us to go this far back in cinema history.
Mm-hmm.
We like to focus on classic film, but this is almost a 100-year-old movie now. Like we are nigh approaching 100 years for King Kong, and we have to talk about it in that context now. Like I remember seeing clips of this when I was a kid in the 90s, and at that time it was an old movie, and it was only really like 60, 65 years old. That's not the case anymore, Brad. We're getting older. King Kong's getting older, and this has now become one of the earliest films we've done on Film and Whiskey.
Yeah, I believe Gold Rush is our earliest film. It's 27, 28?
25, I think.
Oh, I didn't even realize it was that far. We have watched I don't think it was 100 years old when we watched it.
Well, it is now, baby.
Here we are. What a wild time.
It, man.
Man, I am so happy to return to like early Hollywood. I think it's good as like a little bit of a palate cleanser to go back and be like, this is where we've come from, to see where we're at now. So I really enjoyed coming back to it. Bob, the wild thing is this is not a first time viewing for me. I remember watching this film probably when I was like 8 to 10 years old. Like, I don't even think I was a teenager when I saw it, which now watching it as a 35-year-old, I think the thing that blew me away about this film was how violent it is.
Oh, dude, they don't mess around in this movie.
They really don't. It is wild what they got away with. In doing research for the film, I learned that this was 1 year before the Breen Code came out. So they didn't have some, arbitrary moral framework placed upon them. And you can tell.
Yeah, man. It's funny because, as the Hays Code became a thing, then you can't have anything even remotely relating to sex on screen. But you know what you can have? King Kong friggin' biting people's heads off.
Yeah, dude.
In 1933, baby. This movie rocks, Brad. I'm so excited to talk about this movie.
I'm super pumped, man. I had an absolute blast with it. This feels like the introduction to the world of fun violence. And I'm here for it, man. It was a blast.
Yeah, man. Prior to this, the world had only known sad violence.
Yeah.
And now it was like, wait a minute. Death can be fun?
Yeah, World War I was like rough, but we're a ways away from that.
That was a rough time, man. Yeah.
The Great Depression is happening. We need to bring people out of a rut. And what's the best way to do that? With an
giant
ape.
Monkeys. Yeah, bro.
With the most terrifying like eyes and lack of eyebrows, just ripping people's heads off. It was incredible.
Ripping people's heads off. All right, I have to say, there's a reason that all of the early Hollywood stuff we've done on the podcast to this point has been silent. And it's because if I had like a least favorite period of Hollywood history, it would probably be early talkies. Because if you watch silent films, they had perfected the silent film. You know, I went to the movie theater last year. For some reason, Regal was showing the very first Best Picture winner ever. It's a movie called Wings. I had never seen it before. It's a big World War I flying ace epic, 2.5 hours long, silent movie. That movie blew my freaking mind, Brad. It was so good. And then they introduced sound. And all of a sudden, it, to my, untrained eyes, when you watch early talkies, even into this, this is 6 years after the talkies are invented, but like, it takes them a long time to figure out how to implement not just sound for dialogue, but sort of like background noise, sound effects. Like it seemed like the progress that Hollywood was making in pushing the medium forward came to such a halt as they had to figure out what sound was and how to use it, that it took Hollywood 6, 7, 8 years to get back on track. But then what's crazy is like, if you showed me a movie from 1927, 28, when they were still making silent films, and then said, here's Gone with the Wind 10 years later, you can see like very easily the scale is there in both films. But if you showed me like this movie and Gone with the Wind 6 years later, it's like, I can't believe Gone with the Wind is only 6 years after this. This movie feels so much more primitive in its filmmaking. Like there's still a lot of in between dialogue. There's like a long pause and there's just nothing on the soundtrack. And then the guy will be like, what do you say to that, Denim? Like it's so awkward at times. And this period like of Hollywood history is just kind of like that.
Like the moment when Fay Wray says to her love interest, well, you wouldn't say that because you hate women. And he just takes a minute, shrugs, and then launches into his next line.
I want to talk about all the great lines in this movie because they're all offensive, and I can't wait. Every line in this movie is offensive in 2026, Brad.
It really is, man.
But before we get totally canceled, I do want to get to our first segment of the day, which we call Brad Explains.
Brad's gonna give us the movie plot with only 60 seconds ticking on the clock. So let's go ahead and hear your take with this little segment that we call Brad Explains.
Brad Explains is the part of the show where Brad breaks down the plot of the movie that he has just seen, often for the first time. Now, we've established this is not Brad's first time watching King Kong. It's also not my first time watching King Kong. I watched it as a kid, and I've watched it at least once as an adult. And I always had a respect for it as kind of like a part of cinema history. But the level of detachment that I have from it, because the effects are so dated, has always made me be like, okay, King Kong, like, sure.
Yeah,
that was a landmark, but like, it doesn't hold up. And I got to say, man, I don't mean to step all over Brad Explains, but sitting down to watch it this time, I am shocked at how well this movie works. Shocked at how well this movie works. I have such a respect for this movie that I never have before. I don't know if you're coming to this Brad Explains with the same sort of mindset that I'm bringing to the table, but I've been saying this entire episode how excited I am to talk about this movie, and it's because I feel like I'm seeing it with fresh eyes for the first time. And that's the way I'm going to tee you up for Brad Explains, where you're typically watching a movie for the first time. Brad, most people are going to be familiar with the King Kong narrative, whether it's watching this story or the many, many remakes or sequels to King Kong. So I guess we'll give a spoiler alert here. If you haven't seen any of the King Kong films over the last 93 years, hit pause here, go watch King Kong and come back and join us for the rest of the episode.
It is a lean, mean hour and 40 minutes. Not quite a 90-minute film, but man, it does not take long.
Yeah, but like 7 minutes of it at the beginning are an orchestra overture. So it's basically a 90-minute movie.
I'm with you. It's a 90-minute film.
All right, Brad, we're going to give you 60 seconds on the clock to break down the plot of the film with full spoilers. 1 minute, Brad, and go.
King Kong is a film that follows film director Carl Denham, who is going to shoot another wild picture in a foreign locale. He has been told that he needs to find more love interests for his movie, so he finds Anne Darrow, who definitely isn't a prostitute?
Nope.
Question mark?
Nope.
He takes her on a boat. They go to this island way out in the Indian Ocean somewhere? Question mark. They find a uncharted island that has natives on it, and the natives have built a giant wall to protect themselves from the inhabitants of the rest of the island. They find out that there's a giant ape named King Kong there. Fay Wray is captured by King Kong. They go and rescue her. They capture Kong, bring him back to New York City. He climbs the Empire State Building with Fay Wray in his hands, and then he knocks down some biplanes, and then he dies.
He sure does.
King Kong.
He sure does. King Kong, baby. I can't freaking wait, Brad. I teased this episode at the end of last week's episode by talking about a specific line in this movie that had caught me off guard. Yep. There's things on that island that no white man has ever seen.
Bro.
I think the first thing that we need to get out of the way is like blanket statement.
Yep.
There are many dated things about this movie, not the least of which are the incredibly racist depictions of certain types of people and also attitudes towards certain types of people. And it is really hard to just say, okay, set all the racism aside. I totally get it. We are watching a movie from a different time.
And to be clear, sexism. So much sexism in this movie.
Also, tons of sexism. To your point about the line that Anne Darrow has, she falls in love with like the skipper on the boat, and he's like, well, I guess I love you. And they cut back to her and she goes, but you hate women.
And the cut to him is him just shrugging and being like, I am known for that.
Famously, I do hate women. So yes, as reductive as it sounds for me to say, setting aside all the racism and sexism, great movie. But I think go ahead, please.
I will say I am the kind of person that like I'm not going to hold somebody's chronological like state of being against them. Like,
sure.
Honestly, Bob, before we got on air, we were talking a little bit about a little old film called Rise of a Nation, which was Birth of a Nation, sorry, which was so famously racist that when it came out in 1915, it got canceled for being so racist. So like,
here's the thing. It was the highest grossing movie of all time. And also people were like, oh, you can't do that. But then they went back and saw it some more. So like, there's a tension at play here.
There's a level of like, I'm not going to hold where they were at, where they're born in their life against them. We can also acknowledge like, as a human race, we have come to a point where we recognize it's probably not good to be known for hating all women. Probably not to depict people of African heritage in such a way as they depict in this film. That is bad.
Yep.
Don't do that anymore. Now let's talk about 100%. The movie.
Let's talk about the movie now. So King Kong, Brad. Maybe let's get out of the way the effects here. Because there's two things you have to mention simultaneously, which is that this is probably the first big, what we would call like visual effects movie. And obviously D.W. Griffith with everything he did on movies like Birth of a Nation or Intolerance. You've got people like Cecil B. DeMille with his original 10 Commandments and Ben-Hur and all these silent movies that had miniatures and flooding. And like Hollywood was used to scale and effects. But when we talk about things like King Kong and the stop motion animation, that's used for the character of Kong, it's really a first in Hollywood. This is a groundbreaking movie. And, within 10 years, probably this movie looks shoddy. Like, I don't know at what point the movie started to look really shoddy to people. It may have even looked janky in 1933. And I think that's the thing that sometimes we forget is like, cheesy effects are always kind of cheesy, but when they're the first to do something, even if you can tell as a viewer, like, this is kind of cheesy, like when, do you remember The Mummy Returns with Dwayne Johnson coming out at the end with his big pincers? And it was like the worst CGI.
Watched any of the Mummy movies.
Oh, dude.
That's like a blind spot
first
for me.
of all, that might be my make it a double now that you said that.
I'm
anyway,
ready.
like famously terrible CGI at the end of that second movie. And like, even then, even at the time, people said this is awful, but you just got to suspend disbelief. Does the story work or does it not work? Can you get over it or can you not? And I think that so much of King Kong is like, the effects are shoddy because they're stop motion. I honestly had like the opposite reaction this time, where yes, the effects are like so foreign to what would look real, but it was like so removed from the reality that then I started noticing like the machinations of the stop motion. And I'm like, I got sucked right back in because then I'm like, how did they do this? Like stop motion animation is so hard. And not only were they just doing stop motion, but they were like layering in, like there'd be a layer in the front with real stuff and then Kong and then rear projection behind that. And it's very sophisticated stuff they're doing, man.
I think that was the part that really blew me away, was their ability to blend what was really happening with a rear projection. I was like, you can tell that it's happening. So it's not that we are looking for a seamless, I didn't even know that it was rear projected. Like, it's like watching Green Acres and being like, oh man, they're riding a tractor in front of a painting? Oh, I had no idea. Right? Like, I know that it's being rear projected. To me, it was the quality of what was being rear projected paired with the quality of what you had going on the camera that I found myself absolutely sucked in. You talk about Kong fighting the T-Rex, an absolutely engrossing sequence. And when I thought about things like that compared to action sequences from modern blockbusters, I found myself once again thinking about one of our favorite things we talk about for an action sequence, which is geography. They sit with these scenes, and because of the technological limitations, you can't have a bunch of cuts and get lost in the geography. Like, you know exactly where they're at. You know exactly the layout of the pterodactyl coming down to take Fay Ray, which also is Fay Ray not just one of the best, like...
Incredible name.
Incredible name. Fay Ray. Like, you know exactly where the pterodactyl is. You know exactly where Kong is going to come from. You know exactly where they're going to run to. It's just this perfect setup, and the camera can just sit there and allow the action to unfold. And I found myself thinking at many times throughout this movie, man, there's a lot of like B- level directors from today that could up their game if they just watched 1933's King Kong and took some notes on the action sequences.
It comes back to my thing about like movie musicals and how we are way overcomplicating the camera work. When you have a dynamic thing in front of the camera, all you need to do is have one stationary camera that just kind of glides back and forth. That's it.
Yep.
That's how Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly did it. But to your point, man, like, some of this stuff is pretty seamless. There's like the very first time Kong comes on screen and Fay Ray is tied up, you watch like the puppet Kong reach toward the thing, like the pillar where she's tied to, and untwist it. And then the real Fay Ray's wrist springs free. And I'm sitting here in 2026. Like, how did they do that? Like, what did they have to paint out? And how do you physically paint that out in 1933? Is it not like you can't Photoshop a dude in like a green suit out of that?
Dude, I will say I think one of my biggest questions about film editing is like, so you and I go and we're directors on this movie because back then they had 2 directors for everything. And we shoot the film and we have the physical film reel. Editing would be the most terrifying process in the world. Because like you're cutting it. And if like, I'm assuming they have a way to, they can stitch it all together to make the full reel. But like, if you cut at the wrong spot, if you lose the film that you needed, to me, editing would just be the most mind-bogglingly crazy process in 1933 compared to almost anything we do nowadays. Like now we have backups on backups on backups of Google Drive and, Microsoft Cloud and all these things. Back then, it's like, well, this is the one reel that exists of what we shot 4 months ago. It's absolutely mind-boggling what they can do to layer all of that together to give us what we have.
Well, and it just gets back to this idea that like everybody at every level of film back then is a master at what they're doing, a technological master. Like they understand the technical side of how to make a movie. And to come back to the stop motion for a minute, there's a scene towards the end of the film where they've rescued Anne, they've run back through the gate, they've closed the gate, and Kong chases them down. And so you see, it cuts to outside the gate. You've got the miniature of the gate and then like all the tribes people on top of the gate. And Kong's just banging on the door and you see like Kong's back. And even though like the motions are jerky and you can kind of tell that it's stop motion, there's a way that the light is reflecting off of the real world fur of Kong. And it's this kind of greasy looking fur. And I'm like, this looks better than CGI. I don't care how janky the movements are. This is a real thing in a real place. And I'm more immersed in this than I am in most of the CGI I see today.
Bob, I'm gonna break your heart a little bit. Are you ready?
Yeah.
I didn't love the sheep detectives.
Oh, did you watch it?
I did. I sat down with Haley and I was like, babe, we've got to watch this. Bob highly recommended it. And she goes, if Bob recommended it, I don't know if it's going to be that good. And I was like, no, it's family friendly. It's fun. It's going to be great. It wasn't bad. We'll save our sheep detective review for another day. The main thing, I literally paused the movie like 8 minutes in and I was like, babe, I'm going to complain about this once and then I won't say a word about it for the rest of the movie.
CGI sheep.
I hate the CGI sheep. I despise it. Like, and it's not that they're not cute. They're not like all the things. They're cute and fluffy and funny. And the animation matches what they're saying way better than anything else. And it is uncanny valley and it looks so fake. And when Hugh Jackman is like brushing the sheep, you can so obviously tell that he was brushing
air. Yeah.
It's so bad, dude. And all I gotta say is they made Babe in 1994, 95.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with real animals. And it looks a bajillion times better. And in 1933, they had a real Kong. Dude, as I was reading for Two Facts and a Falsehood, one of the biggest problems they had with the movie was that to do the stop motion, they have to physically touch it and move it. And that changed the matting of the fur pattern.
Yep.
And so they would brush it every time to try to get it back, but they couldn't quite. And so you can tell the fur like moves around. But even that level of like, you can tell that as a audience member, I would prefer that any day of the week over CG sheep.
Oh, I totally agree. Man. All right, let's talk about the movie itself. I think the revelation for me this time, Brad, was the pacing of the movie and how masterfully put together this movie is. So I really approached this movie as a chore. I was like, we got to watch King Kong, whatever. My wife was taking
Bob,
our 6-year-old to bed.
You put this on the list. This was one of the 10 films that you put on the list.
I mean, regardless of my thoughts on the movie, I was like, this is a movie we should do for the podcast, right?
Sure, totally.
My wife is putting our 6-year-old to bed. My 9-year-old sitting next to me, I'm like, dude, let's watch King Kong. Like, I don't think you'll be scared by this. It's janky, right? When I tell you, he wasn't scared by the like biting people's heads off stuff.
Okay.
What got him
was the fact
sexism. He was like, Dad,
he was terrified.
I want to learn more about this. This guy knows what's up. I will follow you anywhere, Carl Denham. What got him was the setup of the movie, wherein you do not see King Kong until the halfway point of the movie. It takes 45 minutes to get there. And there's a couple spots where it drags a little bit. But overall, the effect of it is that they're going towards a place that they don't really know where they're going, which is reckless. They start to hear little dribs and drabs about like where we're going is called Skull Island, and like the natives built a giant wall and they say there's something there called Kong. And then when the natives come and abduct Anne, and you're like, what's going to happen? And they cut to her on the thing, and you know that the guys are going to be too late, and you just start seeing trees swaying.
Yeah,
dude, I looked over and you could see my son's pulse like pounding in his neck because it's really well directed. It's a fantastic suspenseful buildup to that payoff. And then Kong came out from behind the trees and he was like, oh, okay. Like because he saw that it was fake, it was no longer scary to him. But I was so proud of the fact that a 100 almost year old movie was so artfully put together.
Yep.
That suspense buildup really, really worked.
Absolutely. I'm with you 1,000%. The beauty of a movie that captures you, that draws you in, even like the opening scene when he walks up and there's just this like grizzled sea veteran that's like, this denim guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like it sets the stage for the film in such an incredible way that by the time Kong comes out, you are fully bought into the movie. And yes, Kong is so bad. Like, it's so rough. But, like you said earlier, once you get over the chintziness of it, and you just buy into the, oh my gosh, this is incredible. This is 1933. The movie works absolutely perfectly.
I will also say, the design of the stop motion Kong looks like a silverback gorilla. Like it's got the like elongated head.
Yeah.
And then when they cut to the close up, like big rubber mask that like smiles and goes, of Kong, it looks nothing like the face of the puppet. Yep. And so like, I can even forgive the puppet for looking janky. It's when they cut to the fake, like close up face of Kong. It looks just like that every single time. And I hated it more than anything else in this movie. And I hated it, in fact, even more than some of the bad acting in this movie.
Oh, now, Bob, the acting is impeccable. What are you talking
There's one person in this movie who is completely absolved, and that is Fay Wray,
yes.
who is just known as like our first cinema scream queen. But she's much more than that. I thought she's given absolutely nothing to do except be like a trad wife and say like, I love you, even though you hate women. She's gorgeous. The gowns look beautiful on her. And then when it comes time for her to actually give the physicality that is involved in screaming for an hour, she sells it. Like I'm totally convinced that she is in peril the entire second half of this movie.
Dude, it really reminded me of Shelley Duvall. Like, you talk about a absolute incredible performance of fear and anguish. Like,
I just pictured the ending of The Shining when Nicholson's like axing the door, and when it cuts to him sticking his face in, it's just that mask of King Kong.
That's an incredible image. I feel like that's a pretty easy, like you could make an Instagram post of that like this. When I think about Fay Wray in this film, I think about people like Shelley Duvall. Like, you don't have The Shining if you don't have Fay Wray portraying absolute terror, like breathless, screaming horror. And the importance of a good close-up shot. Like, you get some close-ups of her face. People, you and I were talking about this the other day, Bob, with our friend Zach Johnston. Like, Botox is not good if you want to be Fay Wray. You have to be able to move your entire face to be able to see the abject terror that she experiences, especially at the end of the film. Like, she's laying in the bed. The King Kong is climbing up the Empire State Building. I guess he's climbing up her apartment building or something. And he like reaches in and grabs the bed and pulls it towards himself. And she wakes up and sees him, for like the third time that he's captured her now. And it's just perfect. And I love it. And I'm curious how you feel about our boy Carl Denham, played by Robert Armstrong. Because I found myself, like, the first half of the movie being like, I kind of really like him a lot as Carl Denham. Like, he's sneaky and kind of conniving, and you can tell that he's not trustworthy, but he does a really good job of that. And then it feels like once Kong enters the picture, he just disappears from the film. And you don't really get anything more with him. So where are you at with Robert Armstrong?
Yeah, so the performance and then the character. The performance is interesting because I totally believe that this is a very sleazy guy. I also believe that Robert Armstrong is a bad actor. And so maybe he was just a sleazy guy. They were like, put him in front of I actually think he's a much better actor than our other male lead is, who is just absolutely wooden and terrible. But and when it comes to Denham, some of those early scenes where they're on the boat, they'll be like, Denham, didn't somebody die on one of your excursions? And they'll cut back to Denham and he'll go, well, and just kind of like look off screen. It's so weird. And there's so much weird posturing going on with him. I don't know if it's just the way he was directed, but
when they ask him that, I was just waiting for him to like pull his leg up on the table and be like, you see this scar?
I'm with you that like once Kong comes into the picture, all the humans in the movie are just like Kong fodder at this point. There's nothing else that needs to be said about the humans. And I actually kind of think that that's part of the brilliance of this movie is there's this really slow build up to Kong. And then once Kong comes in the picture, yes, he's the big bad, but all hell breaks loose. Like they think they're going to go chase this thing off into the woods. And then it's like, here's a stegosaurus. What the hell? And before they have time to think about that, here's a brontosaurus that comes out of the water like friggin' Nessie and chases them down. And then after that, it's like, you're getting attacked by the Tyrannosaurus. Kong is rolling guys off of a log. Like, there's a random iguana that just crawls up and then the guy just cuts him and it falls and you never see him again. There's just like random threats everywhere.
Yep.
And I think that sort of chaos is what makes you hurtling towards that climax so much better. If they had kept cutting away to show like our guy mourning the loss of Anne, whatever, the movie would suck, dude. Like you just need to have them in the jungle getting picked off one by one, which is exactly what you get.
Now, I'm curious, when the brontosaurus came out of the water, my brain immediately goes to like, oh, it's like the one non-threatening animal. And I was like, I wonder, because it immediately starts like ripping them to pieces. I was like, I wonder if Spielberg in Jurassic Park gave them that line to be like, the brontosaurus is a leaf eater. It's safe. The little boy, whatever his name is. I'm like, I wonder if Spielberg did that to like retcon King Kong to be like, actually 1933. It was an immediate connection in my brain.
And also like a hat tip, because if you had told me like, Jurassic Park is influenced by King Kong, I'd be like, sure. It's a monster movie, sure. I think as I watched the structure of King Kong, though, I kept thinking about Jurassic Park and that slow build up to the T-Rex, where everything on that tour is like, we can't see the thing, it's hiding, it's raining, this sucks, we're stuck here, boom, T-Rex, holy shit, all hell breaks loose. Like, the structure of Jurassic Park is the structure of King Kong, and King Kong does it 60 years before that.
And I know for a fact that Steven Spielberg has seen King Kong because when he's in New York City and he breaks up the train tracks for the L and he pulls himself up as the train is coming towards him, I literally was like, oh, that's Ready Player One. Like, he literally rips that straight from King Kong.
King Kong is in Ready Player One, I think, too, right? Like the character of King Kong. Yeah,
exactly. That's what happens. Like, he rips up the racetrack and pulls up just like in the movie. I was like, oh, I see where Spielberg got that.
Well, and then you also have The Lost World, the Jurassic Park sequel, where it ends with a T-Rex being brought back to San Diego. It's just like, let's do King Kong with the dinosaur this time.
Yeah, exactly.
Why not? Brad, I think we're in a good spot here. Let's take a break and drink some whiskey. I have a lot more thoughts on King Kong, but I'm glad to know that the movie is working on you at the same level it's working on me. Let's see if this whiskey works on us similarly, Brad. Let's go try this SHÀNG whiskey. What do you say?
I'm ready, Bob. Let's get to it.
This episode is brought to you by Google Chrome. You think you know a browser, but Gemini and Chrome? That's new. It can help you with practically anything on the web, like restoring a vintage motorcycle from a 50-page restoration blog, or finally break down that long article you've had open for weeks. Gemini and Chrome is here for it. Ready to make anything online make sense? There's no place like Chrome. Check responses, setup required, compatibility and availability varies 18+.
This episode is supported by FX's The Shards, a seductive drama from executive producer Ryan Murphy. Set in 1980s Los Angeles, the series follows a group of glamorous, deeply entangled high school seniors drawn into a life of wealth, beauty, parties, and excess. At its center is Brett, whose reality begins to unravel when the arrival of a new student coincides with a series of mysterious murders. FX's The Shards premieres August 5th on FX and Hulu.
All right, so today we are checking out, Brad, a whiskey that I am going to woefully and painfully mispronounce all of the attributed adjectives for. We're talking about the SHÀNG Jiàngxiāng whiskey, also known as the SHÀNG Dàn Yǎ whiskey. I will explain in a moment, but Brad, this is a whiskey that is a marriage of minds from China and from our friends at Whiskey House of Kentucky, where David Mandel has now wound up, as well as our friend John Hargrove. This is one of their first in-house brands that they've collaborated on. And the idea behind this brand is that they went to one of the world's leading producers of baijiu, which is a very special spirit made in China. And they've formed not just a partnership of companies, but a partnership of distillation processes. And the big reveal of this SHÀNG whiskey is that they're claiming to have invented an entirely new category of whiskey here. Now, Brad, you and I have heard about baijiu in the past, mostly from our friends at tasting competitions that we've been on panels for. Notably, Zach Johnston and Lee Diaz have told us a lot about baijiu. Baijiu is a fermented spirit that comes from China, usually made with sorghum, and it comes in 4 types, perhaps the funkiest of which is the sauce type baijiu, which is apparently very strongly umami flavored and scented. So it basically smells and tastes like soy sauce might taste. And Brad, if there's one thing I don't know if I want in my spirits, it's the taste of umami and sauce, but this is a very popular thing. And before we even dive into the product itself here, Brad, I've never had baijiu. I can only imagine. So as I pick up notes of potentially baijiu and sauce type baijiu in this product today, I'm experiencing a whole new category of spirits for the first time. Yes. It's going to be very hard for me to say this is badly made or this is very well made because I have absolutely no baseline. I am getting my first exposure to this, as I believe you are.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Parma, Ohio, which is a very famously Eastern European area of Cleveland. I have no idea what to expect going into this. I will tell you, Bob, I don't think I'm going to like it. I'm just going to put it out there. In fact, I've already drank it in preparation. What I should have said is, going into my drinking of it, I didn't think I was going to like it. And boy, oh boy, was I correct.
Now, not to spoil too much, I have not tried this yet. Sounds like Brad's not a fan. And that's kind of to be expected because we literally don't know what's good or bad in the world of baijiu. But I gave a little bit of backstory on what baijiu is. This particular baijiu, when it is finished fermenting into a sauce type baijiu, it is then redistilled in a copper pot still into essentially new make whiskey. So we're making whiskey from completed baijiu. And then it is sent over to Kentucky where it is barreled in, American oak barrels for anywhere between 1 month and 1 year. And the resultant whiskey is this new SHÀNG whiskey. Now, there's a second label in the SHÀNG brand called East Plus West, which we will be sampling at a different date. But we just figured, you know what? Let's start with the heavy hitter here. This is 100 proof, Brad, 50% ABV. I'm kind of excited to try it because, like we said, I have no baseline to measure this against. It may open up a whole new world of spirits tasting and drinking for me. It may completely shut the door on one for you, from what I understand. Yeah, Brad, I mean, you've already tried it, and it's a bummer that we can't experience it together for the first time.
Totally.
But I guess, before you sipped it, obviously you're going in with an open mind, but did you have expectations for what this might be? And was it kind of what you thought it would be?
It was. I imagined a world where it had a flavor and nose outside of anything I'd ever understood or experienced before. And I think I was right on that. I will say, going into this, I had a very open mind. I recognized that flavors in Asia are probably the most foreign to the average American consumer. There's a lot of places in the world that do food way differently than we do, but we're overall a pretty good melting pot. You can't go anywhere in the world and be like, well, I haven't ever seen that in America before. Except for Asian foods. I feel like the only Asian foods that have come over are bastardized American Chinese food, which is absolutely nothing like real Chinese food from what I know.
Yeah.
And so I would say the flavors of the Chinese experience are ones that are absolutely foreign to me. And I was very excited to try it. You tell me when you want me to start on my nosing notes, Bob.
Well, you know what? Let me come in with nosing notes because I'm getting my first impressions here, Brad, and I'll let you kind of come in and give much harsher impressions. I thought this was going to smell like soy sauce, and to my surprise, it doesn't. What it does smell like is a very, very young American craft whiskey cut with a higher peat content scotch. It's almost like, to me, if you took some of the definitely funky craft whiskey we've had on the show, and I'm thinking of specific brands, but I won't name them. And you were just like, let me try a dropper full of Ardbeg in there as well. I'm not getting a lot of super saline heavy or even umami on this. There's an interesting floral note on top of it, and it does have a little bit of sea salt water to me. But this is much more approachable than I was expecting, especially after hearing your first impressions. I kind of like it. I'm going to start off at a baseline of a 7.5. And if it disappoints me from here, so be it. But I'm intrigued.
Yeah. For me, Bob, this had I've never had a nose quite metastasize. Who knows? I've never had it change so much as I'm smelling it. Not from one smell to the next, within a singular smell. Mm-hmm. It moved from an apricot jam sweetness up into this bandage fish rotten something.
Oof.
And I literally my body had a visceral, got the tinglies, get it away from me reaction. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. I think this is the worst smelling thing I've ever smelled in a glass. And I will qualify my takes today by saying there's a difference between bad distillate, faulty distillate, and just something I don't like. I don't think that this is faulty distillate. there's nothing about this that makes me go, oh, they messed up the process. I am just going to say this is not for me. And I would not ever enjoy
if I'm like
this.
really trying hard, I can maybe pick up a little bit of like fishiness here, but I feel like I'm pretty sensitive to that stuff, and I feel like I have to think like fish and like really dig my nose into this glass to get that. So I mean, for my sake, I'm glad that I'm not getting that here. But I have a feeling that even if I dislike this, Brad, it's not going to be to the extent that it's hitting you here. So
yeah,
I'm going to take a sip. I want you to go ahead and give your tasting notes. We'll see if it influences me in any way. But I think I'm already higher than this.
Yeah,
higher on this than you are.
Which is good. I'm glad for that. I would say that the immediate flavor note I got was like a peach jam, which moved into like a rotten apple, which moved into like seltzer water and a little bit of saline. The fishiness kind of turned into like rotten apples for me. And once again, I did not like it. I am not enjoying this. I will give it a 4 out of 10 on the palate. It was a little bit better than the nose, but not by much.
This has such a weird tasting experience in that, like, I'm with you. For me, it's not peach so much as citrus. Heavy lemon and like lemon peel, and a lot of vanilla right on the tip of my tongue. As I go to kick it to the back of my palate, it kind of turns into a scotch, like a scotchy flavor, which is to be expected from like Asian styles of distillation. Like they really do follow the sort of like Scotch Irish process, and the grains they use typically kind of mimic that. Now, again, we're dealing with sorghum here, but I'm not surprised this tastes like a young Scotch to me. And then out of nowhere, it was like somebody lit a fuse up the middle of my tongue. And it was this like insanely bitter note that went all the way to the back of my tongue. I wouldn't say rotten. Like I didn't get any funky, like dead notes on it, but it is very, very bitter. If you want to call that medicinal, I think there is kind of like that aspirin-y taste there. So again, if you're a Scotch drinker, I actually think this might be up your alley. We don't typically get a lot of medicinal notes. Like we'll say medicinal, but this really does feel like an uncoated, like Bayer aspirin tab kind of going back to the back of your palate. Not my favorite thing in the world. Again, I'm just not as low on it as you are, Brad. Like, would I immediately reach for this on a hot summer's day? No. Also, have we ever had Chinese-made whiskey before? No. So, like, I don't think this is a bad example of what whiskey can be, even if it's not my favorite thing in the world. I'm going to give it a 6.5 on the palate.
I just like the idea of you sitting there, like, licking Bayer aspirin just to get the flavor profile, like, locked in. And your wife just walking in being like, what you doing, babe?
When I was a kid, my parents had to, like, really do a lot of work to get me to learn how to swallow a pill because I was afraid I was going to, like, choke on it. And so I would just like leave an ibuprofen in my mouth until like all of the coating had dissolved. And I've got that like bitter aspirin-y taste just like seared into my brain now for sure.
Yeah, Bob, I am so glad that you are having a better experience with this than I am. When it comes to the finish, it kind of returns to like a fishy, like, for me, I remember being in Philadelphia at what's the marketplace? It's like Red something. There's a marketplace right downtown in Center City that's very famous, and I can't think of the name of it right now. But I remember being there and being in like the fish market portion, and like every once in a while, like obviously it smells like fresh fish, but every once in a while, like you'll smell a bucket of slop, and it's like fish market brine. That's what I felt like I tasted on the finish. There was some like boiled pear. It didn't last terribly long.
I can't wait to type out these notes, and I'm just going to say for finish under Brad, it's going to say bucket o' slop.
Bucket o' slop. Yeah, 3.5 for me on the finish, Bob.
Wow, man. Yeah, this is like aggressively attacking your palate. I'm not having this experience at all. The negative thing that I can say about this is that it tastes really young. I do wonder what this would taste like if they just let it mature like bourbon and how some of that might round out. I think some of those vanilla notes would really come out to play a little bit more. Right now, what I'm getting on the back of my palate, I get some apple peel. And then I get this note that reminds me a lot of tequila. I'm not a huge tequila guy, especially drinking it neat, because that agave, and because it's not aged very much, it leaves this weird sort of like herbal bitter note on the back of my palate. And this reminds me a lot of that. So I don't know if I'm just saying I taste agave here. I don't really think that's the case. But I'm tasting like a tequila aftertaste here. It's fine. I do kind of wonder, like, at 4 years, what might this taste like? And I think it would be a little bit improved. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 on the finish. And then overall balance, I think this is pretty nice. And it's a completely new category for me. So maybe I'm grading on a curve, and maybe I'm grading a little bit less harshly or objectively. But I don't want to put myself out there as being like, I know all about baijiu, and this is a bad example of I have no idea.
Yeah.
So as a whiskey, I think this is an interesting experiment. Right now, I don't know if I would call it more than an interesting experiment. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 on balance as well.
I will say, when you said tequila, it reminded me of a agave spirit tasting that I did when I was down in New Mexico a year or two ago. And there's a specific type of mezcal called pechuga, and it takes like, which apparently like translates to breast, but it takes like a chicken breast or a rabbit breast or a whatever, and they hang it over the distilling pot of liquor, and the juices from the meat drip down into the distillate. It's like the third distillation. This reminds me of that a little bit.
So let me just make sure that I want to get my tasting notes right. So on finish, it was bucket of slop, and then on balance, it's breast juices. That's what we're saying.
Sure.
Okay. Yep.
I will actually give this a 5 out of 10 on balance, just for the fact that like I think they got what they were going for. Because I dislike it so much, I'm going to keep the score low, but it will be my highest score of the 4 tasting categories. Bob, this brings us into the value category. I don't know how to score this, because I would, like, for me, this is a 0.5 out of 10 value. Like, I would never in my wildest dreams imagine spending a penny on this, let alone $65. So that's the starting point. I think what they are doing is really interesting in like opening up the whiskey world to the world of all spirits. I just don't know what the market for this is. And so $65, if you just told me, hey, we're going to ship liquor from a worldwide place. We're going to ship it across the globe, and we're going to age it in American oaks for up to a year, and undergo a second distillate process to turn it into whiskey. Like I would say, like, yeah, that sounds like it's going to be an $80 to $100 bottle. So the fact that it's $65, I feel like, is probably very fair and accurate. I just have to balance out, like, I'm just going to be bold, Bob. I don't think many whiskey drinkers are going to like this. And if you segment yourself as a bourbon drinker, I think you're going to like this even less. So I will give it a 3.5 on value, because I don't understand what they're doing here.
Brad, I'm kind of with you in that I wonder what the market for this is going to be. This seems like a really fun experiment, and it seems like something that is made for a very small subset of people in America, that even know what baijiu is, and also have a lot of money to spend at potentially like pouring something for their guests at a party. My suspicion is that, like many American companies, Whiskey House of Kentucky is like, what's the largest untapped market in the world for everything? China.
Yep.
We will become the Walt Disney Corporation of whiskey, and we will start making everything with that market in mind. And you know what? If that's the case, then they're doing it at a rate and in a way that no one has done it yet. And so I think that bold claim that they're inventing a new category makes a lot more sense under those circumstances. Like they're trying to penetrate that market in a way that other whiskey manufacturers have not been able to. So with that, I'll say I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. No, I'm actually going to give this higher than that. I'm going to give this a 7.5 on value, because I just looked up baijiu from like American online retailers that could ship it to me. The very cheapest baijiu I could find is $39.
Okay.
So if this is even a halfway decent baijiu that they then redistill, ship to America, and age at Whiskey House, I think $65 is a very fair price. Whether or not this is like hitting that upper echelon for me, I don't know, Brad. What are you coming out to on this?
I mean, my score is a 19 out of 50.
Wow.
I would say that I am coming at this purely from a consumer standpoint. And if I was looking at it purely from a whiskey critic standpoint, I think I'd probably be more in line with where you're at. I think the hard part for me is I don't know what to compare it to. This truly is a new category of whiskey where it's like, this is not anything like any whiskey we have ever had before. And so for me to come in and give it a really high or really low score feels kind of like a moot point because I've never drank baijiu before. So I will fully disqualify my opinion on this to just say, I've never had baijiu. I can't make an accurate judgment on this, but I will say, I think this is really nasty, Bob. I do not like this at all.
I'm in a different place. I'm at a 33.5 out of 50. So I'm just below the 35 mark for recommending. I think this is worth trying, especially as an experiment. Like, I think people should give this a sip and see what they think of it. Apparently, they do sell it in the 50 ml bottles for like $15. And like, hey, if you and a buddy are into whiskey and you want to try something from a country that's not known for whiskey production, this is a cool way to start. Now, I'll also say all of the other reviews and even like informational sites that I've seen online that have info about this product are like, yeah, we were invited to an exclusive tasting at Whiskey House and they poured this for us and it's really cool. And I'm thinking to myself, as a guy who's been in that seat before, this would be a really cool thing to be invited to a distillery and taste for free and hear about the process. And like,
sure,
again, as an experiment, this is dope. As a guy that's like walking into the Kroger wine and spirits store and I'm like, okay, do I pick this up or something else? I don't know if the consumer is going to quite fall in love with the narrative as much as somebody who's like on a tour at Whiskey House of Kentucky would.
Yep.
So that's my caveat here. I'm at a 33.5. Obviously, we're falling below the recommendation mark. Brad, even though you really didn't like this, would you recommend people to try it as an experiment?
I think if you know what you're getting into, yeah. Like I think if somebody just bought this off the shelf because they're like, I like whiskey and this is a cool bottle, I think I'd be a little like, this is so wildly different than any other whiskey experience you will ever have. It almost feels unfair to call it a whiskey. And I think that they said that. They said we are creating a new category of whiskey. And I think that that's an accurate description of what's happening here.
Yeah. Well, Brad, this has become one of our longest reviews of the whiskey segment that we've ever done. I feel like we had to give a lot of context and we had to, you can't just come out and be like, this is nasty. I guess you could, but like, guys, we're coming at this from an educated point of view, and we're also uneducated about parts of this and willing to admit that. So this is gut reactions. I hope you guys got something out of this. I can speak much more eloquently about the 1933 film King Kong. Brad, what do you say we get back into talking about that movie?
Let's get to it.
There's the part of me that everyone sees. I'm Howie Mandel, the comedian. Apparently, I know what funny is. Funny bought me a house, but I also know what isn't funny. OCD. I've lived with OCD my entire life, and people throw the term around like it's no big deal. But OCD is severe, often debilitating. It's a mental health condition that involves unrelented, unwanted thoughts that can make you question your character, your beliefs, even your safety. General therapy can help with some things, but for OCD, it can actually make things worse. That's why I want to tell you about NoCD. NoCD is the world's largest treatment provider for OCD and is covered by insurance for over 155 million Americans. Their licensed therapists specialize in ERP, the most effective treatment for OCD. If you think you might be struggling with OCD, go to nocd.com to book a free 15-minute call. They are here to help.
This episode is supported by FX's The Shards, a seductive drama from executive producer Ryan Murphy. Set in 1980s Los Angeles, the series follows a group of glamorous, deeply entangled high school seniors drawn into a life of wealth, beauty, parties, and excess. At its center is Brett, whose reality begins to unravel when the arrival of a new student coincides with a series of mysterious murders. FX's The Shards premieres August 5th on FX and Hulu.
All right, everybody. That was SHÀNG Dàn Yǎ whiskey.
Nope.
I'm not going to say anything else. I'm just going to leave it there. Bob kind of liked it.
Mhm.
End of story.
Mhm.
I'll say this. What a unique experience.
Truly.
You can
Truly.
clip that, put it on the socials.
Oh,
You know what
else is a unique experience, Brad? There it is.
Nailed
I
it.
knew you were going there.
Ah.
It's our game for the week. 2 facts and a falsehood.
Brad is gonna try to stump you, Bob. 2 are right and 1 is wrong. 2 facts and a falsehood.
2 facts and a falsehood is the part of the show where Brad presents me with 3 items as fact about the making of this movie, one of which is a complete lie. Brad, I believe I am 3-0 on the season.
You are off to an excellent start on your 2 facts and a falsehood record.
I feel an overwhelming sense of arrogance right now.
Yeah.
Very similar to the people in this movie. We will see if I meet my demise at the furry hands of King Kong. But, until that moment, I'm riding high, man.
Are my hands that furry, Bob?
Hit me with your 2 facts and a falsehood, Brad.
Fact number 1. RKO Pictures initially pursued Jean Harlow for the role of Ann Darrow, but MGM would not release her from her contract, which resulted in her doing Hold Your Man in 1933 instead. Fact number 2. Executive producer David Selznick left RKO midway through the production of this film. Selznick's last active business at RKO, and probably his biggest contribution to the film, was to write a memo changing the name of the production from Kong to King Kong. Fact number 3. The old Arabian proverb card at the opening of the film was actually written by director Marion C. Cooper. Which feels about right.
That one, even when it just flashed up and said old Arabian proverb, I was like, that's bullshit. There's no way that's real. So I'm just going to go ahead and assume fact number 3 is a fact.
Sure.
Man, I think you might have me this week. Jean Harlow, a big star of early Hollywood. I can never remember. There are some of those early Hollywood starlets that died very young. I can never remember if Jean Harlow is one of them. So maybe she was just straight up dead at this time, and this is a lie. I have no idea.
Not just dead. Straight
up dead. Yeah. Number 2, David O. Selznick obviously then does go on to found Selznick International Pictures and then becomes the producer on movies like Gone with the Wind. Man, I don't know. I'm going to say 2 is the falsehood. I don't know why he would leave mid-production, or if the movie was not called King Kong before. There's a lot of little things you could have changed in there. So I'm going to say 2 is the falsehood. I have no idea, Brad.
First off, just to confirm for you, Jean Harlow did die at the age of 26 in 1937.
Oh,
so she was not, in fact,
not
straight up
dead. Straight up alive.
Straight up alive, but also straight up never pursued for a role in this picture. Fact number one was the falsehood.
Nicely done, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Do you know who Jean Harlow is? Like, did you make this up with the knowledge of Jean Harlow?
I knew the name when I saw it. Like, I knew the name Jean Harlow. In order to create the fact, there's a little behind the scenes on how I create falsehoods. I looked up famous starlets from the 1930s and looked each of them up and was like, well, none of these are blonde. It was like Joan Crawford and Bette Davis, and they were all like brunettes. And I was like, okay, well, what about blonde stars? Because very clearly they needed themselves a blonde star. And it was like Jean Harlow. And I was like, I've heard of that name. I'm throwing her in.
I'm fairly certain Jean Harlow is where the phrase blonde bombshell comes from.
She was known as the platinum bombshell. So
there you go.
So yes, I would assume that that's where it came from.
All right. Well, you got me, man. That was a really well done fact.
Marilyn Monroe almost did a biopic on Jean Harlow at a certain point in her career. So
there you go. Boom. You know what? I'm glad we got Fay Wray in this movie, though. I've already talked about, I think that Fay Wray is freaking fantastic in this movie. Brad, I'm excited to see where we go with the rest of the episode here, because I think that we could just continue talking about the technical marvels of the movie. You know, I don't know if I've quite underlined enough how much I think this sets the template for adventure movies to come. And for all of its firsts, Hollywood was kind of used to some movies like this. Like, you had movies like The Lost World, which was a silent film about finding dinosaurs. Like, there was a template that had been set. But now with the onset of sound and the ability to kind of make these miniatures and do stop motion, I'm pretty sure King Kong's sequel, Son of Kong, comes out the same year as this. Like, they greenlit that so quickly that you are immediately getting sequels to movies like this. And then, you know, you blow up into Mighty Joe Young and all these other kind of like ape-related movies. It's cool to sit down with King Kong, a movie that we see as the first of something, and also know that it was influenced by movies like The Lost World. And for me, I kept going back to the Universal horror films, like the early Frankenstein, Dracula, because Frankenstein is, I think, 1931. So it's even earlier in the onset of sound, and it's dealing with those same issues. But it learns how to use that silence and that kind of creeping sense of dread. Dracula did a good job with this as well. So, you know, King Kong, for all of its firsts that it had, it did exist in a world where it influenced everything, but it was being influenced by everything too.
Yeah, and I couldn't help but to see all of the parallels between this and so many films that come from it. But truly, in a lot of ways, I think it goes back to what you said, Bob. Just the setup of humans interact with one another to convince each other to go on this trip. And then they go on the trip and experience wild things beyond their imagination. Like, you see that in nearly every, like, you see it in Star Wars, for Pete's sake. Like, they end up in a trash compactor with monsters trying to suck them under the water and eat them.
Yep.
Like, you cannot get away from the influence of King Kong in 1933 all the way up till now in 2026.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe that's a perfect segue for us to get into our Let's Make It a Double here, Brad, and I'll cue up the jingle music.
We're near the end of the episode, so thanks for listening to the Film and Whiskey Show. Let's pair another film with this one, even if it's a struggle. It's our final segment of the day, now let's make it a double.
Let's Make It a Double is the part of the show where we pick a movie to pair up with this one to make the perfect double feature. Now, of course, this season, what we're doing is one of us is picking next week's movie. So, do you want to continue the pattern from last time, Brad, where you pick the second movie, I pick the third? Do you have something you feel really strongly about for next week?
I really don't, actually. I think my pick, as wild as it might be, I think my pick is going to be, and I think I'd rather have your movie be the one we watch, but if you want it to be mine, you get to choose. I would pick 2005's King Kong.
So I love that movie. That movie has such a soft spot in my heart. And I think it is it a little too long? Sure.
Yep.
But Peter Jackson freaking gets it, man.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I came into this episode like, man, I kind of really want to do 2005's King Kong if I get the pick. But I'd also love for Brad to see Frankenstein if he's never seen that. Like,
yes.
So maybe this gives us an opportunity. Let's do King Kong next week.
Yes.
And then maybe the week after that, we'll go back and do Frankenstein or something else. Who knows? But like, I think the jumping from the 33 version to the 2005 version is kind of a no-brainer.
Okay.
Because if people have seen a King Kong, it's probably that one.
Yeah. And so here's the reason I pick it. 1933's King Kong is a breakthrough in animation, stop motion. Like it's this huge thing in the history of movies. I watched the preview for 2005's King Kong, and it was literally like the day after we watched Sheep Detectives. And so we watched Sheep Detectives, and then the next night we watched 1933's King Kong. It finishes, and I go, we should watch the trailer for 2005's King Kong. And we watched it, and I was just like, was CG perfect in 2005? Was that
it's pretty good
computer graphics animation? I was blown away by the CG just in the trailer. And I was like, I think that's my Let's Make It a Double. So there you go. My Let's Make It a Double is 2005 Peter Jackson's King Kong.
I love it, man. I'll give two options of like what I'm already thinking for the third week. And it's going to either be 1931's Frankenstein or 1999's Brendan Fraser, The Mummy. Like two
basically the same
wildly different movies, but man, The Mummy is fun as hell. Like it's just such a fun movie. So we'll see where we go. And maybe I'll pick something completely different after we watch next week's movie. But for my Let's Make It a Double for this week, I'm going to cheat and take two movies, Frankenstein and The Mummy. And Brad, I think with that, it's time for us to get into final scores here. I came into today saying, hey, this movie blew my mind and is way more, not just important, but better than I remembered it being. And I came in here with like my scorecard had a big old 9 on it that I was going to hold up, you know?
Yeah.
Is this better than a 9? Because I think that this is, the way we're talking about it is like a 10. I don't know if it's a 10. There's enough bad acting and racism that I like, you can't quite give it a 10 anymore. I think I'm at a 9.5 out of 10 on this movie, Brad.
Yeah. I will say, man, when the gates are blown open as Kong is like destroying them and all of the islanders come up and they're trying to help hold it closed and Kong busts it open and he bursts forth. What an incredible freaking shot.
Yep.
Like the scale and the epicness. The dialogue in this movie is horrifically bad, even by 1933 standards. Like I'm not holding this to, like Aaron Sorkin writing. Like,
sure,
it's bad dialogue, man. I'm a little bit softer on this movie than you are. I love this movie. It's an absolute blast. I will come back to it in my lifetime. I'm at an 8.5. I think it is wildly fun. It is such an important movie. It's the platonic ideal of a monster adventure movie. Like everybody else is trying to replicate it in a new way. Love this movie.
Yeah.
It's got some rough edges. 8.5 for me, but an absolute blast 8.5.
Yeah, I think the realization for me is that I've always talked about this movie like it was like a Model T Ford. And it's like, okay, important, but not practical. And it's like, no, this is actually like, I don't know what you compare it to.
But then you got into the car and you drove a Model T Ford.
No, it's
And you
more like
started
a
talking like a-
1950s Chevy, or like it's something where like they've perfected the body of the car. Like they know what a car is supposed to be now, and everything we've done since then is just an iteration on this thing. Like they perfected the way an adventure movie is supposed to work, the way a monster movie is supposed to work. It's all here. And so, yes, there are some bumps in the road, but I was shocked to find how perfectly constructed it was. So with your 8.5 and my 9.5, we're coming out to a 9 out of 10 on 1933's King Kong. But we'd like to know what you think. Have you seen this movie in any, in the last 10 years, I would say? If you haven't seen this movie in the last 10 years, give it a revisit.
Yep.
Because, folks, there's things on that island that no white man has ever seen.
I love that
And
you
if
just
you
keep
wanna tell
returning
us-
to the bit. The commitment to the bit is what I'm here for.
It's so good. And if you want to tell us more about that, folks, you can find us on any of our social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube at Film Whiskey.
Or if you want to join the conversation, you can join our Discord server. There's a link to it at the end of every single one of our show notes.
We'll be back next week talking more King Kong when we dive into the 2005 Peter Jackson remake. But until then, I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And we'll see you next time.